Cops. What are some of the best/worst ways people have tried to get out of getting a ticket from you? Coworker of mine was speeding one day on a southbound highway. Told the cop, "Hey man, I know you gotta give me a ticket, but please write out for northbound, or else my wife will think I'm cheating on her." The cop laughed and told him to slow down and let him off. He was not married, nor was he even seeing anybody. Story 2. Pulled over an unregistered vehicle. They tried to offer me money. Behind me was a very large group of students watching on. All of them had access to my microphone to hear what was going on. I tried to explain this to the driver. He simply wouldn't listen or understand. Not that it would have made much of a difference, but I would have preferred to avoid having to arrest him for a stupid mistake. He ended up getting arrested for a range of charges. Edit. The students were police academy students from NSW, Australia. We had lots that fortnight because, reasons, and they could hear the radio mic on my chest to see how I dealt with certain situations. This was done at a roadside random breath test stop, hence why they were all standing around in the background. Story 4. Flirting is always bad, especially bad when the driver is really old, really young, or has their family in the car with them. Now, I don't consider myself to be super attractive, but people will do anything to get out of a ticket. Threatening the officer is also pretty bad, and that's happened before. Sometimes it is threatening to unalive my family if I write them a ticket, but sometimes people get a little more creative. Some racist people assume that I'm an illegal immigrant and threaten to report me if I write them a ticket, and that one always makes me laugh. Bribing is also kind of interesting. Some of the things people come up with are actually kind of funny. One lady yelled and cursed at me while saying I was wasting my time dealing with her when I should be getting the real bad and dangerous drivers out there. She was going 17 over an active school zone. Edit. Normal speed limit is 45. Active school zone, 25. She was going 42 miles an hour. This particular school zone is only active for 2 hours at a time, twice a day. She was weaving through the 3 lanes of 25-mile-per-hour traffic. Kinda hard to explain that she didn't know. Story 6. As a driver, had a cop pull me over. I was 17 roughly and driving my mom's new car at almost 30 over in a residential area. Cop walks up, asks, "This a new car?" "Yep." "Bet you can't even hear the engine when it's going." "Yeah." "Steering is pretty good, right?" "Yep," etc. for several more questions, then just walks back to his car and drives off. His point was well established, but it was weird as heck to me at the time. I literally never offered one excuse. He did, and I just sat there answering, "Yep, uh-huh." Story 7. I once got caught speeding and told the cop how embarrassing it was, but I really had to go number 2, which was true. He took my info and said with a little smile, "You can go. You'll receive the ticket by mail." It has been 6 months now and still nothing. Did he gracefully change his mind? Edit. I just went to the police station and they told me to call the city. I called the city and they told me that there is nothing on my record, but to still make sure with the provincial cops, since it was on the highway/bridge, that they had to be up for a year to send me that ticket. The office is closed today, so I guess we'll wait and see. Poop brethren. Edit 2. I received a post office notice yesterday and went to get the letter just 10 minutes ago. Ta-da! It's the ticket! I wonder if it's because I called. This guy went out of his way to make sure that he was getting that ticket. But I can understand the second guessing. He's like, maybe I didn't get it. Maybe there's late fees, I get it. Story 8. Relevance. My friend had a theory that if you could make a cop laugh, you can get out of a ticket. I'd watched him do this on 3 occasions. Once, he was actually going 40 miles over the limit. That's a felony, by the way. And he told the cop that he was trying to get tampons for his girlfriend, who was cheering at our high school football away game. That was the actual truth. She clocked him going 95 in a 55. Let him off with a warning after some easy chat and a few laughs. The best, though, was when he got pulled over for having a busted turn signal. He handed the cops his license and asked, "Do you think I look better now or when I took that picture?" The cop looked up, hesitated like he actually thought about it. We all laughed and the cop went back to his car. He walked back with his hand on his gun and said, "Do you realize there's a warrant out for your arrest?" Stunned silence. "Step out of the vehicle." He unbuttons his holster. "I'm just effing with you, man. You F with me and I'm gonna F with you." My friend claimed he wasn't scared, but that's complete bullcrap. We all laughed and cop let us go with a warning. Edit. I don't know if it's a Gabriel Iglesias joke. I only ever saw his first special on Comedy Central and haven't watched his other shows. Even if it is, my friend pulled it off in really good context. You could hate on that if you want. I thought I'd just share a funny story. And this was in Colorado about 10 years ago. Cop said 40 over was a felony speeding, and she had some chart on a clipboard that showed us how each 5 miles per hour over the speed limit carried its own consequences. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. I was just in high school at the time, and she said it was a felony, so we believed her. Story 9. Not a cop, but a friend was once stopped for a broken headlight. In my country, there's a fine for that. He didn't know what to do, so he got out of his car. No paranoid police here. And told the officer that the light does that sometimes. And kicked it. And it actually effing worked. The light turned back on, and he was off on his way. Look, guys, I'm not trying to endorse lying or anything, but anytime you get pulled over for a signal or a light, get confused and go, are you kidding me? I just replaced that. I'm freaking 9-0 with that one. You know, if I put as much effort into actually replacing the bulbs as I do as lying, I, wouldn't get pulled over. Story 10. Not a cop, but I've been pulled over 5+ times and have never had a ticket. I also have several family friends who are officers. The 2 best pieces of advice I have: 1, be as perfectly respectful and polite as you can. Please and thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. No, ma'am. 2, if it is nighttime, turn on all your interior lights before the officer even gets to your window. It is a lot less scary approaching a car that you can see inside of. Story 11. Not a cop, but someone I know got pulled over doing about 80 in a 50. And when the officer approached his window and asked, "Why were you driving so fast?" this person's response was, "Sorry, officer, I was trying to get my flux capacitor up to speed." The cop didn't find it very funny.
Oh, wait a second, Doc. Can you tell me about the time machine? And I still got a ticket?
Story 12. As a patrol officer, you pull cars over multiple times a day. After almost 10 years in law enforcement, I've pulled over many, and I've heard them all. The best? That would have to be the guy I pulled over for speeding. I made my approach. Guy rolls down the window. I say my speech. He looks me right in the eye and softly says, "I was speeding. I'm sorry. But you see, I'm in the military. And just an hour ago, I got back from my tour in Iraq. My girlfriend here just picked me up from the airport, and to be honest, I was rushing home to my 2-minute welcome home bang session." Looking in the back seat, I seen military-style duffel bags, miscellaneous military BDU uniforms, a folded-up welcome home banner, and his girlfriend in the passenger seat gave me the, "Yep, that's the truth" look. Have fun, I said, and handed him back his license. Worst? Oh man, there's so many. I have to take a crap is used more often than one might think. The ones I always enjoy are, "Well, I know Officer so-and-so very well. He'll get me out of this." Yay, that's guaranteed to get you a ticket, by the way. Following closely is the, "Do you not have anything better to do than harass the public?" Nope, not today, not this exact moment. You're my lucky winner, buddy. Press hard. Go on. Story 13. I have been waiting for this day. The year is 2007, and I was given an automatic electric defibrillator, or AED, and a bunch of us in my department had gotten them as well. Some wonderful local business donated them. I went through a class and had this thing in my car, and I was ready to save some mother effing lives, yo. I don't know why I was so excited about it in retrospect, but I mean, new stuff is always fun, right? So about 2 months go by, and I'm carrying this thing in and out of the car every day and doing battery checks and being a good police officer. And I'm kind of getting tired of looking at it. A guy working my area announces he is trying to stop someone doing 98 in a 45, and by some act of will, a few minutes later, the person pulls over. I start heading to the location of the stop to make sure it was not something very serious, yada yada. I get there, get out of my car, and this 20-something-year-old is explaining that his father is having a heart attack. I took the dude's ID out of my coworker's hand, asked, "Is this the address your father is at?" And the kid goes, "Yeah." And I effing ran like an action movie style to my squad car, put that crap in effing gear, and everything went to plaid, ludicrous speed. Like, I ratioed and told dispatch to send an ambulance as well. I get to the address, which is actually in a very affluent part of town, and the driveway has a gate on it. No effing time to hit a button. I throw this effing suitcase AED over the gate, and I climb that mother affer after it. And then I pick that crap up and I truck my fat butt in my polyester uniform up the longest effing driveway in America, I'm telling you. And when I bang the crap out of the front door screaming, "Police, I'm here to help!" this 60-year-old guy answers the door gingerly, while holding a tumbler full of what I guess was some kind of booze that I can't afford, and I explain that I was told that someone was having a heart attack. I'm out of breath, pointing at this effing AED, and the guy looks at me like I'm some kind of alien. I bust out the ID that I took from the kid and show it to him. The guy goes, "Hey, that's my son." I explained that his son was pulled over doing 100 in a 45 and told the police that he was trying to get home because his father was having a heart attack. The dad just stared at me blinking, not knowing what to say. I took the ID from him, got on my radio, and told the coworker that the father was having a nice, calm night, and there was not a medical emergency. Edit, I also had to cancel the ambulance. I then stood in the darkness by the gate, hoping that someone would at least have the effing decency to open it, but after a few minutes, I threw the effing AED back over the gate and climbed that female dog and got back into my squad car. I drove back to the traffic stop where the son was getting a lot of tickets. I gave the ID back to my coworker and figured that was the end. A few months later, I get a phone call from the coworker who wrote all the tickets, and I get informed that the son had a lawyer or team of lawyers and was fighting the ticket. I was asked to come to the bench trial by the prosecutor, which I did. Now, in some areas of the country, there are rooms for cops to go and sit and wait, and where I live and work, you sit in the courtroom. So there's this pile of cops from different cities, and the judge and people in the courtroom just take it as it comes. I, by some act of God, was sitting about 10 feet away from the son and dad without the tumbler, and a well-dressed young man that was explaining to them both that if the officers, us, show up, the best course of action would be to plead guilty. The lawyer type asked son and dad if they recognized the officers, us, in the room, and they both stared right at me and my coworker and told him no. They seemed excited. I went out to my car, got the stupid AED again, and came back into the courtroom. Sat there with it, same spot, next to the coworker, and I caught the dad's gaze when he looked back. He nudged his son, who looked at me, as I looked at him, holding the AED, and it was like I saw his soul escape his effing body. They pled guilty, and then I left and went and got lunch. Holy crap, man, this guy's a hero. I mean, he just really wanted to use his new toy, but still, he sprang to action. Good on him. Also, that's a rough lie to give by the son, and then they don't let you leave the traffic stop. You're like, well, this is going to end poorly. Story 15. My dad was pulled over going way too fast on the interstate late at night, like 1 to 2 a.m. He's an anesthesiologist and got called into work because someone had been shot. It turned out that the person who had been shot was a cop. So not only did my dad not receive a ticket, he got a police escort to the hospital, and he has refused to tell me exactly how fast they went to this day. Hearing that story as a kid made me think my very by-the-book awkward dad was super cool. Story 17. I love the video of the woman talking to an officer that pulled her over for failure to stop.
I thought you didn't give pretty girls tickets.
Pardon me?
I thought you didn't give pretty girls tickets.
You didn't think we gave pretty girls tickets? You're absolutely right. We don't. Sign here. Story 18. Get dispatched to an accident and find a Corolla flipped onto its roof. Driver was sitting on the curb with very minor injuries and no one else was hurt in the collision. I ended up arresting the driver for DUI. She was 19 and this was her third DUI. Her response, "Why are we wasting each other's time? Just let me go. It's not like I killed anyone." Unfortunately, with the way the courts work in LA, she was probably going to get off without any consequences. Story 19. I'm not a cop and I don't drink alcohol, but I couldn't resist saying this once when I was pulled over. The officer approached my car. I gave him my license, registration, and insurance. Then he asked me, "Are you drinking tonight?" And I answered, "You buyin'?" I wish I could say that was an original, but I actually heard that from a friend of mine who was a retired highway patrolman. Story 20. Working for a small town where everyone knows everyone. I see a car blow a stop sign at a high rate of speed without even tapping their brakes or slowing down. I pull the car over, and it's a woman that had served me lunch at our local diner earlier in the day. When I walk up, I see her starting to cry until she recognizes me. Then magically, the tears were instantly gone. We make small chit-chat for a couple of minutes, and she tells me, "Thank God it's you who pulled me over, or else I know I'd be getting a ticket." I laugh and ask her for her ID just for formalities. I wasn't planning on giving her a citation until I saw her past record. In the previous 3 months, she had been pulled over 7 times and given 5 citations. Everything from speeding, mostly for over 25 miles per hour the speed limit, and running stop signs. Seeing this, I know she hasn't learned her lesson about safe driving and needs another reminder. So I write her. I go back to her car and she starts screaming at me saying, "I thought you were one of the cool cops." I tell her to have a nice night and to take a moment to calm down before she drives off. She tells me, "Screw you," and rolls up her window. Just because I know you doesn't mean I'm automatically going to let you go. And if I do write you, it doesn't mean I'm not a cool cop, by the way. Story 21. There was a middle-aged guy who bought a brand new Mercedes convertible SLK. He took off down the road, flooring it up to 80 and enjoying the wind blowing through what little hair he had left on his head. "This is great," he thought, and floored it some more. He looked in his rearview mirror, and there was Florida Highway Patrol right behind him, blue lights flashing and sirens blasting. "I can get away from him with no problem," thought the man, and he floored it some more and flew down the road even faster at 100. Then he thought, "Oh, what am I doing? I'm too old for this kind of thing," and pulled over to the side of the road and waited for the state trooper to catch up with him. The trooper pulled in behind the Mercedes and walked up to the man. "Sir," he said, looking at his watch, "my shift ends in 30 minutes and today is Friday the 13th. If you can give me a reason why you were speeding that I've never heard before, I'll let you go." The man looked back at the trooper and said, "Last week my wife ran off with a state trooper, and I thought you were bringing her back." The state trooper said, "Have a nice day." Story 22. Obligatory, not a cop, but my father once got out of a ticket by pretending to be a Catholic priest. He is not Catholic, but uses some of the same liturgical dress and is easily mistaken for a priest when wearing a clerical shirt and collar. When he was pulled over for speeding, he made sure the cop saw his collar and his cane. The cop didn't want to give a ticket to a sick priest and just let him go on without a warning. My father replied, "Bless you, my son," and went on his merry way. Story 23. Long ago, approximately 30 years ago, my family was visiting America. We had hired a car and were zipping all over the place. We did Disney, Yosemite, Grand Canyon, and all the jazz. I can remember the being pulled over by a cop, but I can't remember where. I do remember it was around the time we passed XYXYXY, or however you spell it. We stopped and took a photo of the sign. Whilst scooting along a highway, we were originally going the speed limit. As you can imagine, every other man and his dog were ripping past us. I think the final straw for my dad was when we kept getting overtaken by trucks, so he added a few more MPHs onto the speed. All good until we came over a bridge. Cop car on the other side. Lights went on, Dad pulled over. However, the cop car didn't move. How odd. About a minute or so later, the cop got out of his car, had the real Smokey Bear hat. Dad wound down the window. Cop in a really heavy Texan drawl. "Can I help you, sir?" Dad in an Aussie accent. "Saw you flash your lights and thought you wanted to pull me over." Cop starts laughing. Oh, no, sir. I just flashed my light so you'd see me and not hit me." Edit. Few comments, largely about the accent and the like. To help summarize, this is a memory from someone that was 8 at the time. I turned 8 during the holiday. My 8th birthday was at the hotel near Disneyland. I got a pullback race car, which I promptly lost, and also a huge lollipop that had a picture of Donald Duck on it. We went to Las Vegas, which apparently is nearish said ZYZYX turnoff. I won a money box shaped like a crocodile or alligator in Las Vegas and then promptly lost it. We were staying in the Circus. If you found a crocodile or alligator money box in Circus near a racing car arcade machine around 86, then that's mine. And also, I can't distinguish many U.S. accents, much like I can't tell you whether an English accent is Liverpoolian or Novocastrian. Yet I can tell Riverina from Sapphire Coast, East Coast Australia. I'll see if I can get a picture of my alligator money box. I have a picture of me proudly holding it somewhere, that much I definitely know. I won it at Circus by playing this game where you had to shoot water pistols at a target, which made a hot air balloon rise. My dad and I competed. He, now in hindsight, intentionally missed, but I won the money box. Story 24. Also not a cop, but my best friend got out of a ticket for accidentally flashing a boob at the officer. She had just gotten a tattoo that went around the outside of her breast and couldn't wear a bra while it was healing. She was pulled over for speeding, and while nervously trying to get her ID, insurance, and registration, her boob fell out of her tank top. The police officer kept trying to get her attention, and she got frustrated and sort of yelled, Yes, I know, license and registration, give me a minute." And the officer responded with, "Miss, please, your shirt." She looked down, became beet red, and quickly tucked her boob back in and handed him her paperwork without trying to make any eye contact. The officer started laughing because he realized she was incredibly embarrassed and not actually trying to flash him, so he told her just to slow it down and let her go. She's gotten out of a few other tickets pretty ingeniously, but that's my favorite story. Story 25. Best cop moment. My best friend unalived himself after a moment with his girlfriend. No, I will not go into the details. His brother, my brother, got a call from mom saying she saw the girlfriend was having a panic attack and couldn't breathe. We go effing Mach 7 up and down this 18-mile road to get to her, and I'm driving like a lunatic with my hazards on. Of course, we get pulled over, 80 and a 55. Officer asks, what's going on? We explain. He checks the ID, the insurance, etc., makes sure I'm not impaired, then says, follow me. You've got an escort, but do not go past me. Effing greatest act of kindness to a stranger ever. Story 26. Not a cop, but was in the back seat with a female friend of mine driving. She was only going like 10 kilometers above the speed limit on an empty street. Speeding is bad regardless, I know, and was pulled over by a cop. She takes off her jacket, and she's wearing a white dress shirt underneath. Unbuttons the top 3 buttons, shows off a little cleavage, and a male officer arrives. My friend is behaving nicely and respectively with a bit of flirting and charming attitude. She drops some papers on the ground near the end, bends down to pick it up, exposing more cleavage, then gets away with no ticket. And I'm just sitting there going, what the heck? Story 27. This is not the car you're looking for. In an Obi-Wan Kenobi impression with the hand wave, the coolest thing I witnessed a friend do that worked and got him out of a speeding ticket. The officer tried hard not to crack, then just bent over below the window line where we couldn't see him, but we could hear him laugh. He then raised himself and said, "You have a good day," then left. Hello there. Honestly, what a Hail Mary. I'm going to try that out. Story 28. My cousin recently passed away, but one of the funniest stories he ever told us has to do with this. One day, him and his wife were speeding down the road to get to our house quickly for supper, doing about 40 kilometers over the speed limit. On the way here, he's pulled over by the cops before they passed the local corner store. So the cop gets him to roll down his window, and before the cop says anything, he frantically says, I know I was speeding, and you can follow us and give us a ticket later, but we are just heading to the corner store because the wife is busting at the seams and really needs to take a fat poop right now. So the cop follows them to the corner store. All the while, my cousin's wife is yelling at him for making her so embarrassed. So they get there and says to her, look, I know you don't have to poop, but we can't afford a ticket right now. So you just gotta suck it up and get in there. So she begrudgingly goes into the corner store and waits around a while. When she comes back out, the cop is gone and her husband has this stupid grin on his face. She asks my cousin what happened, and he said, smiling all the while, that the cop let him off with a warning. Story 29. Am I being detained, officer? Yes. Something along the lines of, well, F. He literally thought asking if he was being detained would get him out of a ticket, like the YouTube videos he'd been watching. I guess you could say it worked because instead of a ticket, he got a summons to court. Story 30. Not a cop, but my buddy and me were driving an old, unregistered, uninsured beater once and got pulled over. Before the cop could ask anything, my friend rolls down the window and says, how long is this going to take? I'm afraid I'm going to run out of gas. The cop then says, turn off the engine. My friend replies, if I turn off the car, it won't start again without a jump, and may never start at all. And the cop just waved us off at that point. Story 31. I crested a hill going 85 and a 70, only to see an officer sitting on the side of the road in his Ford Explorer. I knew he had me, so I pulled over before he could even pull out and turn his lights on. When he came up to my window, he noticed a little helicopter sticker on the side of my car. Seeing the sticker, he asked me, they let you drive like that on Fort Rucker? It was a pretty good assumption since that's where Army Flight School is, and I was about an hour away from the base. Of course, me being smart and not stationed there anymore replied, I don't know, sir. I'm stationed at Fort Benning. To which he fired back, they let you drive like that on Fort Benning? I gave him a chuckle and a, no, sir. He let me go with a verbal warning. Overall, it was a 8 out of 10 experience. Would do again. Story 32. This isn't 100% relatable to the question asked, but I want to share it. Before the law, or SOP, changed to having to be 18 for a police ride-along, I did one with my police officer dad when I was 11 for Take Your Daughter to Work Day. It was a day shift and there wasn't much action going on. About midway through the shift, my dad parked on the side of the road and let me handle the radar gun. Out of nowhere, a car comes speeding down a nearby hill marked 30 miles per hour. I clocked the car going 90. My dad clicks on the lights and sirens and we take off after it. It doesn't slow down, and before I know it, we're doing 110 on a CTH. We go for about 5 miles and this car still won't stop or slow down. She hits a mailbox and makes the trash can fly. Dad calls for backup, and soon there are 2 squad cars going after this car. I'm so freaking pumped. This is the most intense action I've ever experienced in all of my 11 years of life. Way better than anything at school. The car finally pulls over, It doesn't take long to notice that the windows of the car are missing and are replaced with saran wrap duct taped to the car. I should probably share that at this point in his life, my dad was about 325, 6'5", shaved head, and intimidating as all get out. If I got in trouble, all this guy had to do was look at me with angry eyes and I would immediately wish for a quick, swift death. So Dad goes up to the car, lets me get out of the squad and stand by near the hood of the said squad, and has the driver get out. It's a middle-aged woman who weighs maybe 125 and clocks in at around 5'2". My dad brings his face down to hers, inches away, looks at her with eyes that could kill, and asks in his intimidating yet controlled manner, "Why the heck were you going so fast, and why didn't you pull over when I had my sirens and lights going?" The woman tells my dad that she didn't pull over because she didn't hear or see him behind her. My dad, with bladed hand inches from her face, if you were ever in Army basic training, you know exactly what kind of bladed hand gesture I'm talking about, asks, "You're telling me that you didn't hear or see me when you have no gosh dang windows on your car? You have frickin' saran wrap on your windows." As soon as my dad finishes this question, the lady replies, "Sir, I just wet myself." My dad made her pee her pants just with a look and a question. I didn't get to stick around for the aftermath because my dad asked the responding officer to take me back to the station so he could continue with the arrest. When I got older, I asked my dad about the lady. Apparently, she blew a 34 on the breathalyzer at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Ugh, yikes. Definitely the coolest take your daughter to work day ever, though. Story 33. I once got pulled over for being in a passing lane of a 2-lane turn. I was trying to get over, but the cop had his spotlight on me and couldn't see to get over. He pulled me over, stating the above. I explained I couldn't see, then said I had a brake light out. I had just gotten an inspection, so he must be mistaken. Then asked if I was at a party and drinking. I said no, I was a speaker at an event and I have a 2-hour drive home. He was fishing to give me some kind of ticket, but ran all my info and he let me go. Story 34. Not a cop, but I tried a pretty lame excuse when I was 18. I stumbled upon 3 cars going 75 and a 60, and I decided to hang with them for a while. We're all hightailing it in a pack when the guy behind me pulls into the slow lane, and there's a sheriff car behind me. Now he's riding me, and I'm in cruise control at 75, sweating bullets. The guy to my right drops back a bit, and I shift into the slow lane to watch the sheriff car blaze past me at around 90. I don't know what to think. So we all get back into position, and about 30 minutes later, a policeman does a U-turn and pulls us all over. My door panel is off on the driver's side, so I just tell this guy that I'm doing electrical work and my speedometer is part of it. So it isn't working right and I'm trying to keep speed with everyone else. Well, he didn't buy that, and I feel like an idiot. Still, story 35. I was once pulled over for a rolling stop through a stop sign at an otherwise empty intersection. The cop said to me something along the lines of, "You shouldn't be driving like that with your daughter in the car with you." I then let him know that she was actually my wife and not my daughter. He turned a shade of red, very similar to the lights on the roof of his car, told us, "Hey, have a nice day," and went back to his car. Humor and or embarrassment can usually get you out of a ticket, as long as it's respectful, of course. Story 36. I'm a female. We were on assignment in a high crime area where we flagged any car over with anything wrong with it. 0 tolerance checkpoint kind of thing. I flagged a girl over because of something inane, such as expired registration stickers. We did have the option of discretion, as in, we were looking for the actual criminal crap ads, so if it was a decent person, we did have the option of letting them off with a warning. But anyways, this girl told me she was on her way to a doc appointment for a pap smear. Everything else was in order, no rap sheet, no robberies or anything, and she was polite and respectful. I totally let her off with a verbal warning. I figured if she was on her way to have some metal clamps shoved up her, the last thing she needed was a ticket on top of that. Story 37. A couple of weeks ago, my stupid idiot self decided it would be cool to do some donuts in my car. I'd never really done donuts before, so I was pretty excited about it. It was about 11 p.m. I pulled out of a residential neighborhood. I proceed to do some donuts on the street, and just as I'm finishing up, I see a cop come through the gigantic vapor clouds I had just created. I start to pull over just as he turns on his lights. He comes pretty quickly to the window and have my license and registrations ready. He then asks me why I was doing what I was doing. I told him I don't have any good excuse. I'm just stupid. He looks at me dumbfounded, proceeds to lecture me and tell me I could easily impound my car and take me to jail. He then asks what I'm doing with my life, and I tell him in a respectful manner. He goes back to his car and for a few minutes comes back, gives me my license and registration. He then tells me if he was CHP, I would already be in jail. He then tells me that he remembers being young and having a powerful car and proceeds to give me just a warning. Let's just say I really appreciated the warning he gave me. Story 38. I was late for an interview. I pulled out of an area that has very bad views in both directions. We're talking hiding a semi-truck with a full trailer bad here, and there was a semi behind me after I pulled out. I start boosting it to try and avoid a rear end to my car and see that in the other direction, just as bad a vision, there was a construction group working on the side of the road. I ended up having to gas it super hard so that I could get in front of the car to my left, or I would end up plowing straight into the construction zone or get rammed in the butt cheeks by a semi. Normally, this would have put me at 26 over, and they were lowering the speed limit, the reason for the construction, and the officer counted it as 36 over. I got out of it entirely by threatening a lawsuit since there were no construction postings at the intersection to warn me. I went around and looked for more signs skipping my interview and found none for about 5 miles either way from the construction zone. The state patrolman wasn't too happy about it, but the district attorney didn't want to fight a losing battle. I didn't get out of it with the cop, but with the DA. The DA actually liked me because unlike the other junkies and such that showed up to meet before their cases, I actually dressed nicely, introduced myself politely, said yes sir, no sir, etc., and calmly explained my side of things, as well as showing photos of the zone, of course. In the end, he said it wasn't worth the trouble to put something stupid on a kid's record, and I was like 17 at the time, just because of extenuating circumstances. The patrolman was a hard butt though, and gave me a "get the heck out of here, you crappy punk" look as I walked out. Story 39. Couple friends were smoking it up and driving, illegal but not so uncommon in my country, and saw a police barrier. They quickly roll down the windows and throw it out. The cops stopped them. The car smelling so bad, they were asked to get out of the car while they search it. While the other cop saw, they threw it and went to recover it. The cop comes back with it still hot and asks, "Whose is this?" And my friend replies, "Finders keepers," and they walked away with nothing more than a slap in the head. Story 40. Not a cop, but the cop at the courthouse where we got our licenses told us this one. In Virginia, you can have one non-family member under 18 in the car until you are 18. He pulled over this kid in his parents' van filled with his friends who definitely were not 18. He asked the kid if these were all his brothers and sisters. The kid turned to him and said, "In the eyes of God we are." And somehow he didn't get a ticket. Story 41. Obligatory, not a cop, but I was going 60 in a 40, got stopped, cop came up, asked what the hurry was. Honestly, I was listening to the radio. A good song came on and my foot got heavy. "Okay, mister, next time, jam at the speed limit, but have a good day." Holy crap, that worked? Yep, happens to all of us. Drive safely. Dude, I don't care where I am. If Freebird comes on, I'm doing 88 in the school zone. I mean, this is recorded, so no. Little poll for the comment section. What song makes you speed heavily? Story 42. Not me, but my late friend. He was a huge Star Wars fan and noticed a sticker on the back of a speeder he had just pulled over. This was the day the new movie came out, so Eli, my buddy, was pumped and brought it up to the dude he pulled over. After talking for a bit, the speeder tried the Jedi mind trick and said, "You will not give me a ticket," a few times, waving his hand around. Eli then said, "I will not give you a ticket," and gave the dude his information back without giving him a ticket. Sadly, this story was told in the last text message Eli sent in a group text with his brothers and buddies and passed away a few hours later because he hydroplaned and crashed on his way to a domestic dispute. Totally fitting last move for an amazing dude though. Rip Eli. Gone too soon. Story 43. I'm a veteran and rolled through a stop sign near the Virginia hospital. It was at a T section, and everyone always only looked in the one direction and rolled through. And this cop knew that, and he was waiting. He would just walk out onto the road and point at you and tell you to pull over, then give you a ticket. On this day, he caught me and the lady behind me. We pull over, he checks the ID, approaches my vehicle, and asks me for mine. I give him my license, and he posits whether I have any other forms of ID. I hand him my veteran's card. He takes a look, then hands both back and says, "If she's served, I let her off too. Just remember to come to a complete stop next time. Have a good day, bud." Plot twist, she was my wife, and I still ended up paying the freaking ticket. Story 44. Civilian who has gone away with a warning the last 3 times I was pulled over, which spans about 20 years. I've never tried to get out of it. I've just been myself. The most recent time, I got pulled over for going 55 in a 35. It was unfamiliar territory that looked like it was headed out into the country, but turned the corner, and I was in the middle of a suburb, okay? I was visibly angry with myself when the cop told me it was a 35 zone, and then he let me go. Story 45. My dad got out of tons of potential tickets as a teenager by popping the hood of his '69 Chevelle and talking about car stuff with the cops, who were mostly just impressed with the speeds he was able to achieve. In conclusion, the police in the 70s sucked at their jobs, and my dad is an awful driver. Story 46. My wife got pulled over for an expired plate. It was like 9 months expired. She had a giant "It's a girl" balloon in the back seat she had acquired from a recent baby shower. Cop saw it, let her off with a warning, then advised to avoid a certain intersection with a motorcycle cop so she wouldn't get pulled over again. We are keeping that balloon in the back forever. Story 47. I merged right, yielding to an ambulance with lights and sirens going. I merged over right in front of a cop, slightly closer than I would have liked, but perfectly safe given our speeds. His lights weren't on, by the way. I signaled and moved over after a brief look in the mirror. He instantly put his lights on and pulled me over. By the time he walked up, the ambulance had gone by, and he admitted when he got up to my car, he hadn't heard the siren and thought I was just cutting him off. Since he had already lit me up, he felt like he had to pull me over anyways and explain, but he apologized for all the hassle, and he let me go. Story 48. Not mine, but my dad's story. Driver, not a cop. He was at a bar with some friends and ate a bunch of garlic food. Drove home, didn't drink at all, and saw a cop was up close and wouldn't back off. He decides to swerve a tad, and instantly the lights went off. Pulled over, waited for the officer to come to the window, and when the officer put his head close, my dad said, "Is there anything wrong, officer?" Right up close in his place. Apparently the officer was retching from his breath and was starting to look upset until my dad said, "You kinda deserved that." Apparently the officer started to laugh and agreed he shouldn't have been driving that close. Now I really want to try this sometime. Story 49. Not to get out of getting a ticket from a cop, but rather a judge. So my 86-year-old grandfather was driving on the highway up to his cottage. My nan was already there, so he was in a hurry to see her. He was going about 10 over and got pulled over. He was given a ticket and asked to go to court in a few days, so he went. When at the court, the judge asked him, she was female, why he was driving so fast. So he told her. She asked him if that's how he normally is driving. He chuckled, remarked that he never has, and never would be able to under the most circumstances because his wife always tells him not to go fast or he will get pulled over and charged. And 9.8 out of 10 times she is with him when driving. So he swore that he would never speed again, not just because he doubted he would be able to with his wife in the car, but also because he didn't want to give her a reason to be right even more. The judge found it so funny that she let him off without any points lost or payment. Story 50. My cousin got pulled over. He had a few drinks. Cop told him that he had to do a sobriety test. My cousin told the cop that he would only do it if the cop did it with him. So the cop told him to stand on one leg and touch his nose. The cop also stood on one leg, touched his nose, then lost his balance, touched his foot to the ground. My cousin said, "Look like you lost," and the cop let him go. Story 51. Not a cop, but I was driving back from an LARP event a few years ago with my sister's future fiance and a few of his friends. The driver is going 15 over and gets pulled over. Cop asks, what was with all the camping and LARP gear in the car? Driver says, matter-of-factly, "We are coming back from an event where we chaperone kids who are fighting with foam swords." Cop reduces the ticket to going over 5, and the driver challenges it in court and gets out of it entirely. Story 52. True story and one of my favorite ever. My brother is NYPD and a huge Star Wars fan. He pulls a car over for an expired inspection sticker. Him and his partner approach the car, and the man rolls down his window and waves 2 fingers in front of his face. Says, "These are not the droids you're looking for." Without missing a beat, my brother looks up at his partner and says, "These aren't the droids we're looking for. You can go about your business. Move along," and just walked back to his car. We wonder to this day how many other cops that man has tried that on, or if he had a dead body in his trunk and threw that out as a Hail Mary. Either way, heck of a story, and I bet that man tells it all the time. Okay, this seems to be like a way more viable strategy than I thought. Is this the third story this has happened? Story 53. My former coworker's boyfriend, who was a deputy sheriff, told me a story about a redneck rookie cop who pulled over a male college student. The student had never been pulled over before, was a freshman and scared out of his mind, could barely answer questions and was shaking. RRC thought the student was on drunk or drugs, so he went to administer a breathalyzer. RRC told the student, "Alright, just need you to step behind the car and blow on this for me." for the breathalyzer. The guy thought it meant something else and said, "Well, officer, if that's what I need to do, so be it." RRC realizes it, freezes for a few seconds, then hands the student back his license and registration and leaves. RRC was so embarrassed but told the story so he could ask advice on how to avoid that situation in the future. Story 54. Not really trying to get out of it, but I got pulled over for going 84 into 75 in Nowhere, Texas. My attitude to the cop was pretty apathetic. Just get through this so I can keep going. What was funny about it was I noticed he looked at my dashboard and gave me kind of a funny look, and I later realized that I forgot to turn off my cruise control, which was showing at last being set to 84 right before he pulled me over. Story 55. Got popped for speeding in a minivan. The officer said, "Do you know how fast you were going back there?" I said, "Look, this is a Chrysler Town and Country minivan. Consumer Reports' lowest rated minivan on the road today." And I had the window down. The air was blowing through what was left of my hair. And I said, "You know what? It's time to live." "So I admit it, copper. I punched it. I had it floored. I was giving it all it had on its wheels. What I'm saying is, I'm a wild man. So don't even try to stop me now. Just lay it on me. You were doing 46 in a 35. And I'll do it again. I told you I was a wild man. If you want another ticket tomorrow, just meet me over here at Dead Man's Curve, and you'll see a crappy-looking maroon bluer right in front of you. You'll never catch me in this street, stalker." The cop howled with laughter, and I didn't get crap. I've been laughing my way out of tickets ever since. It's just a stupid ticket. Cops hate you making them feel like jerks for doing their jobs. So I don't. Ticket me, don't ticket me, I don't care. I'm not losing my crap over this once every 2 years. Story 56. I've seen my dad get out of several citations for not wearing a seatbelt, illegal in my state, always with the same excuse. "My wife died in a car accident because of the seatbelt. I never wear one and I never will, so I'll just pay the ticket." Shockingly, this has always worked, and my mom is just fine, by the way. He's a liar. I know it's stupid, you don't have to tell me. He knows it's stupid too, he just doesn't care. People still do what they want. Story 57. Obligatory, not a cop. But I was in the passenger seat and my friend was stopped, and the convo was something along the lines of, "Do you know you were going 70 in a 45? "We were. Our car has French sign, which means we have to take it to get fixed. Mechanic? It's not our car. Our teacher told us we have to fix. He lent to us. We were in rush. Made wrong turn. We are learning in school. We are here for a year. That I'm white American. So we were just going 'cause late and wrench simple. We have to fix. Car. Mechanic? That's not an excuse to be speeding." I don't know how, but this guy gave us a warning and that's it. This was the most bullcrap attempt I have ever seen. Everyone in the car is like, "What the heck are you even saying? What is that accent?" Story 58. I was pulled over on the Highway 1 near Big Sur on my motorcycle on Thanksgiving Day, headed home to be with family. I had waited until a big sweeping curve where I could see way ahead to cross a double yellow and pass a slow motorhome. I didn't know at the time that there was a CHP cruiser right behind me. He pulled me over a while later and walked up, just shaking his head and said, "Where do I start?" It was long enough since my passing the RV that I didn't even know why I was pulled over, since I wasn't speeding or anything. He then asked me if I knew he was there when I took off and passed that RV, and I sincerely explained that I did not, and that calmed him down. We chatted for a bit about my bike, a BMW Dual Sport, and he ended up asking me, "Are you American?" Which caught me off guard, but I said yes. And he let me go with a verbal warning and a "Happy Thanksgiving." Good guy cop. Really made my day that time. Story 59. Not a cop, but I did get out of a ticket. Was managing a dry cleaner storefront. Found some drugs, the cop's 17-year-old daughter's pocket. Have to go through the pockets before it gets sorted. Called the cop on his personal cell. I'm supposed to report anything to the cops, which I explained to him as exactly what I was doing. A month later, I get pulled over for doing 90 in a 45, but there was no record of that though. Story 60. Not a cop, just a driver who got out of a ticket. So it's 11 or whatever p.m., right? And I turn right through a stop sign. I remember it being a yield with a cop right behind me. He asked me why I'm out so late. Me, a grown man, breaks down in tears, telling him that my wife is having an affair and that I can't stand to be in our house alone knowing what's going on. This was actually a true story, unfortunately. He tells me that he has been exactly where I was and escorts me home. Even called me a few hours later to see how I was holding up. Really good guy. Story 61. When I was 21, I was living in a summer resort town. Bartender, just, effing off in general. One day, a bunch of us had been out partying on a boat all day. After getting dropped off, I was driving home through the little town. We were all pretty buzzed up and had open beers in my hand. My car was an '82 Honda Accord covered in stickers screaming, "Pull me over." I just came up to a four-way stop, and I see Buddy walking across, so I lean out of the driver's window, yelling at him, throwing him the bird. That's when I noticed the cop driving right behind me. I quickly tell everyone, "Be cool, a cop is behind us," which of course means they immediately turn around and look back, and then, bam! It takes me a second to realize I just got rear-ended by an effing cop. I pull through the intersection and into an empty spot. The officer parks next to me. I step out of my car, massaging my neck, and ask him what that was all about. He actually says, "I'm sorry about that, I wasn't paying attention," before calling his supervisor. Turns out he was a rookie. This is a good time to point out that in addition to probably qualifying for a DWI, my tags are expired. Next thing I know, there are now 3 cops and myself kneeling back by my bumper. One of the cops waving his arm back and forth saying, "Do you see anything wrong here? Any damage? Anything at all?" I just replied, "Hey, no, it looks fine," but that my neck was getting a little sore and I'd like to get home. The supervisor took a long look at me, then told me to go straight home and my car had better stay there all night. Story 62. Used to ride sport bikes with a group of people. One of the riders, we'll call him Too Old, I think he was 80 or so, but rode the crap out of his bike. Fast, old man, faster than some of us. White hair and all, you could tell he's 80. I think he had a Honda 1000 race-ready Hurricane. He told the story of going like 90 in a 55. Cop pulled him over. Cop approaches the bike. He takes off his helmet. Cop looks at him, laughs, and says, "Get the F out of here, man," and drives off. All right, guys, that concludes our stories and tips and tricks on how to get out of some tickets. Hopefully you learned some valuable lessons, and if not, well, drive more responsibly. But thanks again for hanging out here with me, and we will see you in the next one.